For over a century and a half, Colorado stood as America's ultimate destination state. Ever since the 1870s, its population consistently surged decade after decade, barely ever missing a beat. Millions of Americans packed up their lives and moved west for 300 days of sunshine, world-class outdoor recreation, thriving tech hubs, and a lifestyle that felt like a permanent vacation. But recently, that long-standing American dream hit an abrupt wall.
So new data from the U.S. Census Bureau showing 239,000 Coloradans decided to pack their things and leave the state last year.
Recent official census estimates and reports from the Colorado State Demography Office reveal that net domestic migration across the state has hit its lowest growth trajectory in over 35 years. Major population centers like Denver County and Arapahoe County recently recorded a combined loss of nearly 18,000 residents to state relocation in a single year alone. Middle-class families, longtime locals, young professionals, and retirees who once saw Colorado as an unbeatable paradise are now quietly packing moving vans and driving across state lines. To understand why this historic migration pattern flipped so dramatically, you have to look at the severe economic, societal, and environmental pressures that built up behind the scenes over the last decade. The first major driver behind this shift comes down to a fundamental climate and geographical miscalculation that catches thousands of out-of-state transplants off guard every single year. When people picture moving to Colorado, they usually imagine a postcard scene of snow-capped Rocky Mountain peaks, towering pine forests, and cozy mountain towns right outside their front door. The physical reality, however, is that over half of the state east of Denver is actually a vast, flat, semi-arid high desert. This high-altitude landscape delivers extreme weather fluctuations, intense summer heat waves, relentless prairie winds, and brutal dry cold during the winter months. For older residents and retirees in particular, combining sub-zero winter temperatures with an elevation over 5,000 feet creates severe physical stress. Everyday tasks like shoveling heavy snow, navigating icy mountain passes, and dealing with chronic joint pressure become increasingly difficult. As a result, thousands of seniors who initially relocated for a healthy outdoor lifestyle end up heading south to warmer states like Arizona, Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas after just a few rough winters. Compounding those tough climate realities is an issue that directly undermines Colorado's biggest selling point, its famous outdoor air quality. People willingly pay a massive premium to live near the Rockies, specifically for pristine mountain air and an active outdoor environment. In recent years, however, air quality along the heavily populated Front Range corridor has repeatedly broken records for all the wrong reasons. A combination of rapid industrial expansion, high vehicle emissions trapped along the mountain wall, and increasingly intense western wildfire seasons has turned local summers smoky and hazy. During peak wildfire months, thick smoke rolls down from northern and western forests and settles right over the metro valleys for weeks at a time. For residents living with asthma, allergies, or cardiovascular conditions, the promise of clean mountain living breaks down completely. Instead of hiking, running, or biking outdoors, families find themselves locked indoors with air purifiers running around the clock, driving many health-conscious residents to seek cleaner, less volatile regions further east. Beyond environmental factors, changing political dynamics and cultural friction have accelerated the outflow as well. Historically, Colorado was widely celebrated as a pragmatic, libertarian-leaning purple state, maintaining a careful balance between agricultural conservatives, mountain independents, and urban moderates. Over the past decade, however, a massive wave of coastal transplants fundamentally reshaped the state's political landscape, swinging state policy firmly to the left. For conservative residents in rural and agricultural counties like Weld, Mesa, and Pueblo, rising state tax structures, stricter environmental mandates, and shifting gun laws have created a deep sense of political alienation. Many of these families are actively liquidating their properties and moving to states like Wyoming, Montana, Texas, and Idaho, where local governance aligns more closely with their core values. On the flip side, progressive residents in urban centers express growing frustration that public infrastructure, highway networks, and school funding haven't kept pace with all the newly generated tax revenue, creating a persistent cultural friction where residents across the entire political spectrum feel like they are getting a raw deal. In major urban hubs like Denver, Aurora, and Boulder, everyday quality of life has taken a visible hit from years of unmanaged growth. Traffic congestion along Interstate 25 and Interstate 70 has turned quick weekend ski trips into grueling 4-hour parking lots. At the same time, property crime, automobile theft, and public safety concerns have escalated across urban neighborhoods, while visible homelessness in city centers has put immense strain on municipal resources and small business owners. Families who stretched their financial limits to buy homes in what they assumed were quiet, clean neighborhoods are now dealing with big city headaches, traffic gridlock, and rising local crime rates without receiving the municipal efficiency or polished infrastructure they expected in exchange for their high property taxes. An even deeper economic issue driving residents out is the severe disconnect between local paychecks and everyday living costs. Colorado's local economy remains relatively strong, but average wage growth simply hasn't kept pace with compounding inflation in housing, municipal utilities, auto insurance rates, and everyday groceries. During the remote work boom, tens of thousands of tech workers and corporate executives relocated to the Front Range while retaining high coastal salaries from California and New York. This sudden wave of high-earning buyers rapidly bid up the price of everything from local dining to home repairs and childcare, effectively pricing out local teachers, healthcare workers, first responders, and service employees. Now that major corporations are enforcing return-to-office mandates or adjusting remote compensation based on local market tiers, even higher-earning transplants are realizing that their dollars buy significantly less comfort and financial stability in Colorado than they would almost anywhere else in the country. The undisputed centerpiece of this entire exodus, however, comes down to the sheer impossibility of the housing market. Over the last decade, Colorado housing prices climbed at rates that shattered historic national averages. The statewide median home listing price hovers around $575,000, while in primary metro areas like Denver, the median home price sits well above $630,000. In luxury or university markets like Boulder and Aspen, median home values comfortably pass the $1 million milestone. With mortgage interest rates remaining elevated, buying a standard 3-bedroom suburban home today requires a household income well over $130,000 a year just to manage basic principal, interest, taxes, and property insurance. Meanwhile, median rental rates across the Front Range linger between $1,500 and $2,000 a month for basic apartments. For young families attempting to build generational wealth, recent college graduates starting careers, or long-time locals looking to buy their first property, the financial math has become mathematically unworkable. Staying in Colorado increasingly means renting indefinitely with little hope of equity, leaving moving out of state as the only financially rational choice. What makes this trend so fascinating is how it is fundamentally reshaping the way Americans think about geographic freedom, personal finances, and long-term security. When a basic single-family house in an average suburban subdivision costs over $500,000, people naturally start questioning the entire American economic equation. Many of those packing up are heading to Sunbelt states where property taxes and home prices are lower, but a rapidly growing segment of remote workers, freelancers, and retirees are realizing something even bigger. They are realizing that swapping one expensive American state for another slightly cheaper American state doesn't actually solve the core problem of rising domestic inflation and bloated living costs. Instead of paying $2,000 a month just to rent a modest apartment in a congested city, or stretching themselves thin to afford a $600,000 mortgage, an increasing number of Americans are choosing to opt out of the domestic cost of living rat race entirely. They are taking their remote salaries, online businesses, or retirement savings and relocating to countries across Southern Europe, Central America, and Southeast Asia. In places like Spain, Portugal, Costa Rica, or Thailand, that exact same $1,800 monthly housing budget doesn't just cover rent, it covers an entire high-end lifestyle, including private health insurance, fresh local groceries, utility bills, and dining out every single night of the week. The exit from states like Colorado isn't just about leaving a specific state. It is part of a massive global movement where everyday people are prioritizing true purchasing power, financial freedom, and a vastly superior quality of life.